as well. She's tough as nails, and she's not scared of anything, especially if it's something that she wants.
Honestly, thank you so much for the time. I'm speaking with Rocky Shay, the star, and William Means, the writer director of Junkie. Thank you both so much for the chance to speak. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for
Thanks for
having
having us.
us.
This is a fabulous film. I,
Oh,
I
thank
fell in
you.
love with it
Thanks.
in the first 10 minutes. I truly did. Um, it's just such an incredible piece. William, where did it come from?
Ooh, my life. No, no, like mine and Rocky's lives. The Yeah, I guess the more long-winded version is like, I'm Southern born and raised. I'm like originally from a Georgia swamp town. Used to have a much more of an accent than I do now, but now living in LA. But uh, yeah, growing up there, both in environments where you have to deal with addiction and with like addiction in my own family, seeing addiction in the families of others, and then also growing up a closeted queer person and not really even knowing how to process or deal with all that at the time. Um, but that personal experience for me is, something that I've had to unpack in my adulthood where you're conditioned to think that you're sort of a lesser member of society or that something is wrong with you and needs to be fixed. And, you struggle with that forever until you learn to love yourself and empathize with yourself a little bit. But then in doing that, it kind of made me want to challenge myself to do the same towards, people I'd wanted to hate or ostracize, such as like people who hurt me, like those struggling with addiction, and try to understand a bit more where they come from. And that was why I wanted to tell this story that about addiction that wasn't, uh, you know, Requiem for a Dream, where it's like I feel like that, like I like that film a lot, but I feel like it's exactly what your parents tell you is going to happen to you if you do drugs. Like you're going to become an amputee in jail and you're going to like go crazy on a subway train. And maybe for some people, but I've lived a much different reality from that. And I know that Rocky has as well. And I wanted to make something that I felt like could be a lot more cathartic for people dealing with that and going through it and but still deliver it in the package of exactly what we go to the movies for, which is like a lot of fun and some thrills and to laugh maybe. And I felt like it was prime territory because all of those things naturally come with the lifestyle. And then purely on a filmmaker level, I've been making movies since I was 8 years old, and it's always been my coping mechanism. And I had tried to get a couple of ideas off the ground after grad school at AFI out here in LA and was just repeatedly running up against the hard brick wall of how difficult it is to get a first feature greenlit, especially one that's going to need a fat budget. And so I finally got my first feature made by returning to my roots of literally going back to my home turf and basically shooting something in my backyard with all my friends. And it is now Junkie.
So you shot this where you grew up, did you just say? Like this is the
Yeah,
same
yeah, a good
location?
part. It's so yeah, I spent a good not one single town. We actually shot it across a couple of different states because the mud rave sequence is at a real mud bogging rave in Kentucky. The majority of the film was between Atlanta and Athens, Georgia, where I like after I lived in Swamp Town, Southern Georgia till like 13 years old, and then was in Athens after that. And finished off the whole shoot with like our big house party sequence, which we actually shot at a house out here in LA.
Oh wow. Okay. Okay. Um, Rocky, I want to hear from you. Like, talk to me about Stevie and your relationship with her. What do you appreciate about her? What do you see in her that you connect with, or that maybe even frightens you a little bit?
So, Stevie, connection with her would be how hard she fought to get to her son, just to tell him that that she loved him and that it was never his fault. And it didn't matter what she had to go through, she went through it. It didn't matter what it was. I mean, murder, the just craziness or whatever. Because I would.
Rocky has not murdered anyone for the record.
No, no, I haven't. No, not even
That was
close.
just a documentary sequence, I
Yeah,
thought. That was just still camera. Oh, I assume that was
yeah,
real. Sorry.
yeah. That's what it was. But but yeah. And I'm a lot like that. If I would have moved heavens and earth to get to my kids to make sure that they knew that. Um, and then I'm a lot like her with her playfulness that she has, that she tries not to take things, even though it's a serious moment, she tries not to take it too serious. Because if she does, then either some really, really bad shit's gonna happen, or she's gonna be in the floor crying. So I do that in my life. I have a defense mechanism is humor. I was always the funny one, not the, whatever, the good looking one, whatever. So I always use humor with that. Um, but then also, Stevie she has a big heart, and I would like to think that I have a big heart. Uh, but then she also speaks what's on her mind, and I have a lot of times I'll have vomit of the mouth as well, and I'll speak what's on my mind too. So I like her toughness as well. She's tough as nails, and she's not scared of anything, especially if it's something that she wants. So yeah, so I think that's how I can relate to Stevie. I really loved her. I loved this character. It was
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't mention that like the whole like impetus of this script was that I just sort of had that idea of wanting to portray addiction in that way and took the idea to Rocky and didn't really know about her addiction background. And then she was like, "Oh, well yeah, I could tell you a bit about this," and literally loaned me her like 6 years worth of her journals that she kept while she was both in rehab and some of which she wrote while she was high. And taking those is what I used to go and like write the script.
I was wondering if there was more of a collaborative effort on this one because, Rocky, with you and Will, like if you're passing on your journals, like did that help shape and really flesh out this character in a new way?
I can say 100%, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I because again, I think me growing up with like addiction and putting it into my work. Like I'm someone who is not afraid to get very personal with my work while still striving to do it in a way that the maximum amount of people can connect with. But I actually felt like this was um it was a project so written from my own like emotions and things I wanted to express, but it also felt like one that was the most removed from me because it I felt almost like by reading her journals, I was trying to write it more through her filter and like her point of view, um, which I actually feel like helped me view the film a lot more objectively than I would a lot of other things I'd made before, because it felt more like I was trying to accurately represent somebody else's story besides my own, which was Rocky's.
I mean, it's such a beautiful journey across the board, and you know what, like Rocky, like you said, like Stevie, she is funny, she's fiery, but it's this love for Liam that keeps her relatable is not the word, but because she's so human, like you just relate to her on
Yeah.
a human level. But gives her such drive. Maybe that's the way to describe it. And I would love to hear from you both on building this relationship or this relationship, Stevie's relationship with Liam, because I think it's really fascinating. And there are moments where she sort of seems to confess that she wants to be a mother to him, but she seems almost afraid of passing on her brokenness to him. Uh, what do you think about that as a character aspect?
Well, even the character aspect, even like in real life, no parent wants to to give their kid their worst trait, you
Right.
know. Um, so, and you're right, Stevie. is whenever she talks about how, she was so young whenever she had him, and how, they give you this person and it's a mini you. How am I supposed to take care of this person when I can't even take care of myself? What am I going to do with this human now? I'm responsible for this human. And that's scary. And I think from day one, Stevie was scared, because especially as her family was kind of cruel to her or whatever, that, I can just picture the mom or whatever, saying, that I shouldn't have Stevie shouldn't have been able to have a baby because she's going to pass over all her bad traits and stuff like that. So I'm sure that's in Stevie's mind. And, when you drill that in somebody's mind, then you have this baby and you're having to take care of it, and you love it more than anything, but everyone's telling you that you can't do it and you're going to screw them up and everything. So, and then eventually, Stevie gives in and starts thinking that that's going to help get rid of that heartache, and that maybe turn it around for her where she will start caring, which is totally a lie. But that's what addiction does, is it lies to you. But then, whenever towards the end, whenever she's trying to get to Liam, she loves this kid with all her heart. And I mean, he is her heart. And that's her main thing for actually living, trying to just get to him, to make sure it wouldn't have mattered if she would have died the next day after she told him, look, this was not your fault. Didn't never chose drugs over you. I love you more than anything. I just couldn't get through my own shit. And it was just too heavy. And so I think in that's beautiful,
Hmm. And
really,
yeah, I think, and like part of the therapy of the creation for us was like, yeah, I do think like for me,
as
it felt
well.
like a
She's tough as
stepping in a
nails, and she's
new
not scared of
direction
anything,
of trying to
especially if
tell a
it's
story
something
like
that she
this
wants.
because I could only speak from the perspective of like the queer child who struggled with his parents and knows how he feels as the child in that position, but not the parent. And then Rocky was the the gap. She could speak as an addict parent, not always knowing what the perspective of her kids might be or what it might have put them through. And I feel like there were a lot of even moments on set where it would result in us talking about the circumstance of a scene and being like, I'd be like, she'd be like, well, I don't know, like why my kids may have felt this way or what they might have thought about this. I'd be like, well, I know from experience that it would have been blah 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 blah, and she could always do like the exact opposite as the parent. And so I feel like there was a lot of like yeah, therapy in that, but then yeah, wrap that therapy up in the fact that Rocky and I both share a similar fucked up sense of humor and we love things that kick ass. And so that was like what we wanted to package it in.
Honestly, I can say this truly. I don't think I've seen a film, or at least none come to mind, that paired drug addiction and a queer journey in this way. Not even as one person's journey, but as parallel journeys that actually elevate the other one. I truly can't think of another film that does that as well as this film. Um, and I love just as you're sharing this, I mean, the fact that you two are in conversation while you're filming these scenes and sort of processing things from different angles, I think adds so much to the end product, the end film. Um,
Thank you.
and I wanted to ask you both about dancing. It sounds like I'm pivoting, but I'm not. Um, because dancing is used in a fascinating way in this film. And it starts at it from it opens and closes sort of with it. I mean, open it doesn't really, but Stevie describes being in rehab as getting sober is like dancing with no music. And there are a couple, and then she talks when she's talking with Liam, she's talking about the way they used to dance. And of course, the film, without saying too much, there's a dance at the end. Why was this an important metaphor for you to use, and how do you think it gives life in the midst of difficult times?
You have no idea how deeply complimented I feel by that question. And like there's one other person from a screening who was like, someone brought up dance, and then the person was like, and that whole thing is set up right from the opening scene when she like picks up that little boy, and I was like, oh my God, you caught it. Like you saw. I can definitely say for me that I guess like well, this is a very heavy but very quick way to put it, is that similar to how like I got like I went through a gay conversion therapy as a kid, and then by the time I managed to unpack that and come to terms with it, it's like I realized that I had to reckon with a lifetime of being taught to fear and hate something that is also the things that come naturally to me to love and to bring me pleasure. And so it's almost like I associate this fear and pain with pleasure, like that they're very intertwined. And I actually feel the same about like addiction and partying, which is like, people use substances usually when they go dancing, or like when you go to a club or to a dance floor or to a rave or whatever. And because dancing is like this really ancient form of, human freedom and expression and being a true self. And, now we've combined it with substances, and like we specifically have a whole business dedicated to, you go to a place to do this, but you also go to take all these substances and get fucked up to do it. And I think it has a similar, like, and that was one of the things I hated growing up as a child, having to deal with addiction, was like I would associate the thing I feared most, and when I thought bad things were going to happen, was when people started partying and when people started dancing. And then as an adult, like I love dancing, I love partying, but yeah, it's like it's all of a sudden you have to reckon with the fact that something that is supposed to be so pleasurable and cathartic is completely intertwined with something scary and like full of guilt. And so it was a huge theme for me in the movie of like wanting to like kind of start the film in a place where someone's dancing in the really obnoxious, off-putting, stressful way. And part of the big secret payoff of it is like, can, Stevie be able to dance in the right way? Can Stevie feel like she can hear the music internally again without there actually being music present? And also, Rocky and I in real life are just two very explosive personalities, and this bitch won't stop dancing on set, like between takes. So like, sometimes you have to tell her to get back to work because she's dancing and rapping in a corner.
I think that's beautiful. I really do. Honestly, to you both, Rocky. It's such a wonderful performance,
Thank
and
you.
Will, you can tell this for both of you. Actually, this film means something, and I think there's such a life embedded within it. And it is. I genuinely appreciate the chance to chat with you about it. Thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. I
Thank
appreciate it.
thank you very much for having us.
Yes.
Anytime. Anytime. Thanks. Have a great day.